shall start as normal by going and getting my wood. For the main part of the blade, I am going to use some of this old floorboard, and I have used this before. I use this to make the top of my workbench, and as you can see it's quite thick, which isn't ideal. Ideally I would have liked to use one of these pieces here, but unfortunately these were from an old fence, and as you can probably tell, it's blue and a bit weird. I did use pieces like this for my tennis net, and I know they're solid, but unfortunately for this project, my plane isn't working very well, and I can't seem to get the blue off here, so I'm just going to have to go with some flooring. But I guess it should make the project a bit more exciting, because I know it's nice and solid, and it's a slightly unusual way to make a project. When I was camping once, I did buy this sword here, and it's quite cool. But I've always wanted to make my own. One of the real inspirations for this, and the thing that kind of finally sparked me to go out and make my own sword, was watching a video on I Like to Make Stuff. They made a wooden katana, and they also made that out of some flooring. I doubt I'm going to do as good of a job as the people on that channel, but I'll try my best to make this looking at least like a sword. As I kind of want this to be a samurai sword, if you know what a samurai sword looks like, it isn't straight like this sword at all. It is, it's kind of a curvy sort of sword, so I'm just going to take a pencil and go freehand and try and make a curve and see how that just turns out. Right, I've kind of drawn on these lines. It's probably a bit difficult to make out on camera. I am going to have to go over them a bit more firmly with my pencil, and maybe try and get them not quite so wiggly. One thing that I'm being careful about, I chose a piece of wood with the grain running that way. If I'd chosen a piece of wood with the grain running that way, it would have really, really easily snapped. And I know I'm definitely not going to go into battle with this sword, but I still want it to be robust enough to sort of move around a bit. I have got these lines marked out, and I kind of like the way that the sort of radius that these curves go at. I have marked 2 straight lines here, and these are for when I come to insert the blade into the handle. So these bits will just fit nicely into the I'm not entirely sure if it's called the handle. I know that this bit's called the handle, but I'm not sure what this bit is called. I'll have to look that up to find out. So I want that bit, these bits with the straight lines, to fit into there so it's nice and secure. I've clamped this piece of wood onto the bench just with some F-clamps, and I could use a coping saw to cut this out. That would take ages, and that would give me really big muscles. But to be honest, I really can't be bothered to do that because this is really, really thick, and it would just take ages. So I could use a bandsaw, but I don't have a bandsaw, so I'm just going to use a jigsaw. Now, as you know, a jigsaw is a very, very loud tool, and it will just deafen you all watching the video, so I'm just going to cut it out with the jigsaw off camera, and then we can move on to the next step. Finished using the jigsaw for one of the sides of the sword. As you can see, I've just cut all along here, so the next step that I need to do is probably cut out here, but I've decided not to, I just want to sand this side, and for that I'm going to use a disc sander. Now disc sanders can be really expensive, but quite recently I made my own disc sander. So basically this is a sanding disc, and what it's got is it's got a bolt that is stuck in the back with some hot glue, and I used a nut and a bunch of hole saws to make sure that that bolt stays nice and securely in. So I'll just show you now what it looks like from behind. So there's a bolt somewhere in there, and the bolt gets inserted into our cordless drill. So obviously now when I turn on the trigger of the drill, it's going to spin this. You can probably hear it, and it allows me just to run my piece along there. But I've just forgotten to put on my dust mask because it does get really quite dusty. So that has got out most of the saw marks. I might have to go over it a bit more with that, and then with some just normal sandpaper, and then I'll cut out the other side. Now I'm just going to sand it quickly by hand. I finished cutting and filing both sides of the sword, so now I'm just going to take a file and put a very slight chamfer on the sides. I've got the blade pretty much completely finished. I've still got to stand a little bit more on this side, because you can still see some of the pencil marks, but it might be a little bit difficult to make out on camera. So I want to have a little block that's just going to go round there to stop my hand from slipping up onto the blade. So I've taken a bit of floorboard that I cut off from here, so I think it fit like somewhere on there, and I've traced the outline of the bottom of the sword onto there. So I'm going to cut that side, and then I'm going to cut that out with a jigsaw, then hopefully that will just slide on to there, and then I'll have to think of what I've got to do next. So I've just finished with the jigsaw and the file, and I managed to cut out a hole in there. So now that fits in quite nicely. There is a bit of a gap on both of these sides, but that isn't too big of a deal. So I'll just put glue on these longer sides to hold that in place. So I'll just do that now. So I'll just use some Gorilla Glue and a lollipop stick, and I'll just put plenty of glue on here. And then plenty of glue on the other side as well, just to hold it all nicely in place. And then just push that down, and hopefully that'll stay in place. I really don't know how I'll clamp it, to be honest. In fact, I probably won't. I'll just leave that. It was later, and I've come back, and this is dry. And it's a bit difficult to see, but it definitely still does wobble. So what I'm going to do to fix that is I'm going to get a dowel and I'm going to put it through there and into here, and hopefully that should stop it from moving so much. I've just finished putting these two dowels in, and they've really seemed to have stopped the problem of this moving around. And that completes today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and if you liked today's video of making this samurai sword, please like and subscribe, and the next best thing you can do to help me is share this video with some of your contacts. And I'll see you on my next video.